I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Tom Graham, co-founder and CEO of EveryAny.one and Metaphysic. Tom, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So much to dive into in the Metaverse space. I know you have quite the insight, and I'm excited to hear what are the next stages in how the Metaverse is becoming our next reality. So let's just dive straight into it here. I would love to start with a little bit on your background and knowledge in the Metaverse and what led you to starting EveryAny.one, and then we can dive into the details.
Fantastic. So to set the scene, I guess, Chris Ume, the creator of Tom Cruise, which maybe lots of people have seen on TikTok, that kind of hyper-real deepfakes of Tom Cruise, and myself and some other co-founders, we created the company Metaphysic basically to build the technology, the AI models to create and automate the process of making hyper-real synthetic content at scale. And so the hyper-real part is it's like Tom Cruise. It kind of looks real, like it was shot with a camera. And the synthetic part is where, you know, the AI models do all of the heavy lifting of creating the content with very little human intervention. Which is like really different than CGI, which is like heavily human kind of curated, and then the software used to create CGI is, you know, human created software. Whereas, you know, we're using kind of GANs and deep learning algorithms to automate the process of making that like really realistic content. So that's Metaphysic. You know, that's our mission, that's our goal. And then we were thinking, how do we kind of scale this idea of hyper-real content in the metaverse to every person, every internet user on Earth? And how do we put individuals at the center of controlling who they are in the metaverse? Because when you kind of have your data, my face, my voice, everything that makes me in the real world, you take that data and then you get AI algorithms to make personalized, interesting content, and then it's out there in the metaverse. I feel that I should control who I am. I should control that data, and whichever content platform or metaverse platform or render environment, game, etc., that, you know, I'm appearing in as my hyperreal self, I want to kind of be in control of that process. So to that, we created our Web3 platform called EveryAny.one, and the website's EveryAny.one. And basically, anyone can come and create their own hyperreal synthetic avatar, and then, you know, today you mint that as an NFT, and we kind of manipulate the latent space of the big model to kind of, you know, we can transition genders, you can get older, you can get younger, facial expressions. That's kind of like the level of interactive content that we can do today. But it won't be very long before you'll be able to be that avatar, be yourself in a hyperreal sense in deep Tom Cruise quality content in metaverse platforms as they pop up. And everything, I believe, is probably tending towards hyper-reality in the metaverse.
Wow. Very interesting, Tom. I'm super fascinated about this, and I feel like this is leading into, you know, you see in the sci-fi movies like holographs of people, you know, a phone call, and it looks like they're actually there with you. I feel like this is the next version of you know, NFTs in the metaverse are at a basic level right now, and we really need to get that depth in there. And I feel like the metaverse overall needs to continue to grow in terms of, you know, the quality and the bandwidth and how it can support something that is hyper real and super good quality. Maybe you can talk about where you see the metaverse at right now and where Metaphysic is at with it.
Yeah, perfect. So one thing that I find fascinating is that, you know, we all have many people on Earth, billions of people, have kind of a Web 2 internet experience, and we do a lot of things online. And then, you know, I think that the metaverse will be the visual layer of computing on top of our current internet experience, you know, the next 10, 20 years. More or less everything that we'll do, you know, instead of e-commerce going to buy something at a shop, I'll be trying it on inside the metaverse virtual shop with my hyperreal face, my body, and I can see exactly what it looks like. So I think that the metaverse will eat the Web 2 internet from that point of view. But that means that it has to be billions of people worth of deeply personalized, hyper-real, high production quality content. And that from a technical point of view, you can't have individual people doing the creative, or like the hundreds of people that build the like relatively realistic world inside Call of Duty or some kind of really awesome game today, or the, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars spent on making CGI for a movie to make like special effects. We just don't have the ability to create content like that for billions of people and still have deeply relevant, personalized experiences in this highly visual metaverse. So I think the metaverse will, you know, there'll be a lot of gaming, more gaming than there is today. There'll be a lot of cartoon, hyper creative avatars, but there will be this large section of the internet, which is also in the metaverse, where we'll just have to be ourselves, our hyper real selves, work, parent-teacher interviews, trying on stuff in shops, pretty much lots of things, you know, online banking or something horrible like that. But so from a technical point of view, we can only go from data we collect in the world around us, which is like hyperreal by default, right? And then directly into AI models that automate the content creation process and the interpolation of that data into virtual environments and render environments, game engines and stuff like that create the virtual experiences. And they will, you know, kind of like just automatically, it's easier to create hyperreal content at scale than it is to create curated, creative, high production value content. And so that's the first reason that I think the metaverse will be hyperreal. Just technically, it's an inevitability, I think, of scale. And then the other one is that places that you turn up to as yourself in your everyday, like work, Zoom calls, etc. We're doing this, you know, with video. You know, it's just more appropriate to be yourself. And we've spent a lifetime building our identities and being happy or unhappy with who we are. And, you know, I'm always, I don't know which like colored unicorn avatar I want to be. You know, that's like I'm a big gamer and I love like this concept of recreating identities. But if you're a single mum with 2 kids and you just have to go to this parent-teacher interview in the metaverse or work, it's probably, you're not going to spend a lot of time reinventing a digital version of your identity. And it may not be appropriate anyway. So it's kind of the mundane part of the internet future, which is going to be hyperreal. And then the concept for EveryAny.one is, can we use Web3 and NFT kind of technologies and the advantages of those to put individuals in control of their own data, which is kind of like your hyperreal virtual DNA, right? What makes up the ability to recreate you synthetically. And can we allow people to really have consent and knowledge when other third-party content platforms create you as an individual inside their environments? Do you really know what you're doing? Are you in control of it?
Yeah, I mean, great point there. And that was going to lead into my next question. You know, when deepfakes first came out and we saw the Tom Cruise video, it was like a red flag for everybody. They're thinking, oh, no, and anything can be faked on the internet. You know, any video might not be real. So how do we use the technology of blockchain and NFTs and whatever other AI you're using to solve those problems of impersonating others and having things go wrong and having your data being taken over by other people?
Because we're kind of pioneers in the synthetic media deepfake space, and Chris, my co-founder, who's really the leading kind of AI synthetic media artist, and you know, he thinks of himself as a VFX person, but really he's an incredibly gifted data scientist. You know, from a computer science point of view, that's you know, with our vision, that's what Chris is doing. From a creative point of view, he's an amazing AI generative artist. So he has been there in this community, leading it since the very, very beginning. And this is kind of the DNA of Metaphysic and EveryAny.one, where ethics and ideas around consent and empowering individuals to be in control of synthetic media when it's created in a hyperreal way, that's really built into what we do. And so that is behind basically creating a conference series called Synthetic Futures, behind the which talks about and creates content around that, ethics in synthetic media. Also, EveryAny.one, it's really the backbone of that. Sorry, I've totally lost my train of thought. I'm super jet lagged in LA. What was the?
No problem, Tom. I'm curious, you know, you mentioned about the influencers and creating this hyperreal content. And I want to know, like, what are the next stages from where we're at with decentralized metaverses, in Decentraland or Sandbox, and the quality of graphics that they have, and the gameplay that it's currently at. I mean, what are the next stages in getting this technology implemented into the everyday?
Yeah, absolutely. So today, a lot of kind of metaverse experiences, content experiences are very pixelated, low resolution game, relatively simple game engine based, and increasingly people are rolling out really sophisticated versions of that at the full extent of what game engines can deliver. So in order to bring the hyperreal into that, because humans are such good computers at understanding uncanniness or something is off with a CGI face and voice, we're really just so good at understanding that. Finding ways to bring AI modeling and those techniques that we use in deepfakes into game engines or other content experience render platforms, etc., whatever people are using, that's one of the core tasks of Metaphysic. So we build the tools, the integrations, everything that a content creator kind of needs in order to work this stuff into their content experience. And so then, on the EveryAny.one side, we're creating that positive economy where you as an individual, it's really easy for you to have control over your data and consent to being inside that upcoming personalized content experience. And I think I remember the point that I was trying to make before the question that you asked, which is around, like, how do we stop people from doing bad things? Because we've been in the middle of this from the very, very beginning, basically, I think that creating that positive economy is the best way to crowd out the nefarious and ill intent of creators who are doing things like deepfake pornography, doing things without people's consent, misinformation, deepfakes for political purposes. You saw the one with Zelensky in Ukraine. So we do a lot of work behind the scenes as an industry. There are only a small number of people, companies, etc., in the industry, and we all work together really hard to kind of create awareness and debunk or pre-bunk these kinds of malicious uses, but creating that positive economy where you actually have an avenue to be in control, and it's not, like a third-party content creation company that's like, oh yeah, we just didn't know that we had to like ask people's consent to make hyperreal versions of them, but we collected 1 billion users' data already, so like, what are you going to do? Like that I think is really important, to try to just create a paradigm where there is a way to do it right, and still have individuals empowered and not kind of disenfranchise them in a way that's like really profoundly intertwined with our physical reality and who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said, Tom, and I'm glad that you reverted back to that. That's valuable information. And I want to talk a little bit more about EveryAny.one, and the name says it right there, like getting anyone and everyone involved in this. Can you talk about the stage on how people can get involved in this right now and help contribute or help it move forward?
Awesome. So we're just launching it now, and you can go to EveryAny.one. There, the best way to get involved is to join our community on Discord or Twitter, and that is just spinning up today. And so then what we're going to do is about 10 weeks from now, about 3 months from now, you'll be able to come and create your own hyperreal synthetic likeness as an avatar and mint that as an NFT for free. And the idea is that it's locked to your wallet. So you can't kind of like sell yourself or sell your virtual DNA. But what you'll be able to do in the future is create subsequent NFTs where it's maybe a kind of a mix-up of your visual DNA, but say your favorite performer, like maybe it's Lady Gaga, and it's like visually Lady Gaga, and she has consented, to, I'm not saying that we have a partnership with Lady Gaga, but hypothetically, the celebrity, the talent person has consented, and now they allows their fan base to use their visual DNA and create themselves in the style of Lady Gaga, and maybe it's a limited run of that. So then, as the technology progresses over time, any of these characters that you have, which are hyperreal versions, it's original content kind of personalized deeply towards you, but it's maybe you in the style of David Bowie or you as a mashup of Lady Gaga. As the technology develops and the render platforms and the content experiences are more hyperreal in the metaverse, you can be any of these characters going forward. And we build out the support and the different experiences over time for that. You can be any of them at the level of like fidelity and hyperreality that you get out of Deep Tom Cruise in the future. So we think that it's an amazing way to scale fans towards and audiences towards people with who are celebrities or who have fan bases, and it could be also any movie character from any period in time. It could be Tom Cruise from Mission Impossible 1 or Top Gun, or it could be Elvis Presley from the early period, because bringing people back from the dead is obviously possible. So that'll be the kind of the future of how we build up this kind of library of people that we want to be based on ourselves, and then we can use them anywhere in the metaverse. The very first thing that we'll do though is create a collection of people that don't exist. So we're going to launch in about 6 weeks from now an NFT collection, which is our core community collection, designed to reward our community, bring them together, and it's 10,000 hyperreal avatars of people which are totally fictional. So the models can kind of infer people that don't really exist, but they're still hyperreal. And you can see that on the EveryAny.one website. You can see some examples, and we manipulate the vector space to change gender, to kind of change age, you de-age, you smile, you can move around, and a bunch of other kind of vector space manipulations inside the model that will allow people to play around with. And that is kind of these are like the prototypes, more or less, for these hyperreal avatars. And so we hope that will be the mechanism to bring our community together, and then shortly thereafter you can create your own hyperreal likeness.
Amazing. Incredible technology, Tom. I'm really excited to look into this when I'm able to create my own avatar, and I will check out the NFT drop as well. I will leave the links to EveryAny.one and Metaphysic in the description box below for the viewers who are also interested in this technology. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about all things Metaverse and AI, and I'm really excited to see this in action. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on, and all the best in the near future.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot for having me.